This video is powered by, as always, entertainment. If you enjoyed this content, consider becoming a patron over on patreon.com/asalways for access to the Patreon exclusive podcast, The Kill Connor Clubhouse, early access to the Cinema Room podcast, being part of polls for future videos, and other early access material. With that said, please enjoy the video. Kingdom Hearts 3 is a game many have waited over a decade for. It's a game that needed to achieve capturing the old magic that caused people to fall in love with these games the first time, but at the same time translate that and bring it 2 whole console generations forward onto the PlayStation 4. And they did that with ease. But this is more than just an average review. I hate doing what every other channel does, going over in a controlled, spoiler-free way the ins, outs, ups and downs of gameplay. This is a game that means so much to me, and so I wanted to tackle this from a perspective of someone who loves Kingdom Hearts and wanted so deeply for this game to deliver. This video will be split into 2 sections, the first being totally spoiler-free, and the second delving into the narrative and post-game. I'll have timestamps pop up and fair warning for when I'm about to start talking about spoilers, which will give you plenty of time to skip over if you don't want the story spoiled, but just wanted to hear what I had to say in general about the gameplay, structure, and so on. If you want to know my raw, unfiltered, in-depth thoughts on the whole of the game's narrative, we have an in-depth spoiler cast that's nearly 3 hours long that you can get access to right now over on patreon.com/asalways for just $1. If you'd like to support us there. I'd highly recommend it, it's some good juicy stuff. But if you don't want to be forking out any money, it's coming to YouTube, iTunes, SoundCloud, and Spotify February 17th. So stay tuned for that, and subscribe to know when it drops. Before we get started, I want to thank our Patreon producers, King Richard III, Josh Devillier, and Seth. Thanks so much for the continued support, guys. And so without further ado, let's jump into this.
They can take your world, they can take your heart, cut you loose from all you know. But if it's your fate, then every step forward will always be a step closer to home.
To begin with, we'll start spoiler-free. If you're here just for my thoughts and analysis of the gameplay systems and whatnot, then this section's for you. To start off, let's talk about one of the core aspects of Kingdom Hearts, the combat. Ever since Kingdom Hearts 1, the combat has been major, with an emphasis on difficulty and using your skill to take down enemies and bosses, urging you to master their attacks and your abilities. Each Kingdom Hearts game has their own way of doing this, and usually even when overpowered, you can still get a challenge from the bosses in the games. Now this is where I'm a bit on the fence when it comes to Kingdom Hearts 3. The combat is solid and fun, I feel powerful, I feel flashy, I enjoy it when I'm playing it, and that's a huge positive. Getting through the game feels fun. Every time I enter a combat scenario, I'm having a good time. But perhaps not for the same reasons I always enjoyed combat in Kingdom Hearts. For the most part in Kingdom Hearts 3, fighting regular heartless, nobodies or unversed feels well balanced, even with the incredibly frequent situation commands which we'll get onto later. Everything seems to balance itself out, at least in my eyes. It's the bosses where things seem to not stand up to the previous Kingdom Hearts titles. Now bear in mind this could be a symptom of the fact critical mode is not yet out for Kingdom Hearts 3, assuming it's coming down the line, and perhaps I'm so well tuned to playing the games on critical mode that playing Kingdom Hearts 3 on Proud just ended up being fairly easy for me, but I have a feeling that's not the case. When playing most of the bosses in the game, I felt as if I was just wailing on them with the KEYBLADE, even a few of the end game bosses. They never seemed to retaliate, and I kept them stuck in a stunned phase for far longer than I would have done in previous Kingdom Hearts games. I never seemed to trigger their revenge value, and I don't think I ever really noticed a desperation move other than perhaps a few occasions. In Kingdom Hearts 2, for example, it felt as if your attacks matched what the enemies could dish out, so you could properly counter them and they could properly counter you. You had to be aware that this was possible and be ready to strike back. In Kingdom Hearts 3, it feels more as if you're just smashing X, and it doesn't feel like there's really much else to it than that. There's no tactical switching to drive forms, no limits to use, no alternative attacks, no cancelling out of combos, and when compared to Kingdom Hearts 2, the combat can feel slightly sluggish, but that's only really in comparison. The game itself doesn't feel slow, it's just because Kingdom Hearts 2 was so precise and responsive. All of the moves I mentioned before, which would have been tactical and manual in Kingdom Hearts 2, are now swept away into random situation commands in Kingdom Hearts 3, and to me it seems to remove all player agency from battles, meaning you mash X until you get a command, you use that command, and rinse and repeat. Like I said, the combat itself is still fun and it feels enjoyable, but it fails to nail for me what the previous Kingdom Hearts titles have done so well in the past. Don't get me wrong, I expected for the most part for the combat of Kingdom Hearts 3 to actually suck. I expected it to be very unbalanced like most Osaka games are, Dream Drop Distance and Birth by Sleep to name the two most common offenders. But the combat itself with abilities and all the special moves is pretty balanced, but it seems as a compromise for this, Osaka has removed all player choice in which play styles they want and have instead dictated for you when abilities are allowed, and this takes away a huge part of what made Kingdom Hearts 2 so good, and it almost feels as if Sora has regressed rather than progressed in some cases. This being said, there were a few times where I noticed bosses were fighting back, moments where I had to guard and use my actual skill rather than mashing buttons or using special moves. This I loved. Perhaps like I said, this will be far more present when a critical mode is available, so the game will be harder and force you to be more tactical with which keyblades you use, which abilities you have on, and how you approach each encounter. This is all coming from someone who's used to playing Kingdom Hearts on their hardest difficulty and playing all of the secret and super bosses, and I suppose as someone who is accustomed to this, I'm going to notice these smaller things a lot more. And for a casual player who plays all the games on standard and just enjoy what they offer and the story itself, you're not going to notice these flaws. You're going to have a blast. And all the critiquing aside, I had a blast too. Like I said, the combat is fun and enjoyable, and there are a few challenges to be had. It's just not quite what I was hoping for after Kingdom Hearts 2 got things so perfectly right. Before I talked a little bit about situation commands, but let's try and break down what it is about them that I feel takes away from the experience of Kingdom Hearts. Situation commands were first introduced in 0.2 and work very similarly to that of command styles in Birth by Sleep. You do enough damage to enemies and you build up somewhat of a gauge with 3 arrows that build up over time above your command deck. Once built up, these arrows will turn into a command that you can use, and depending on the types of attacks you use, the command will be different. For example, use a lot of water spells and the command will be a powerful water attack. Use a lot of Keyblade strikes and the command will be a transformation for that Keyblade itself. The magic situation commands I don't have much of an issue with, as they don't replace anything and are just a new addition. Those on their own I wouldn't have been mad at all because I think they work well. Use a lot of magic and you get rewarded with a powerful magical strike. My issue comes from Keyblade transformations and party limits being tied to situation commands. The Keyblade transformations basically replace drive forms in Kingdom Hearts 2, and the limits are the same as previous Kingdom Hearts games, except now they're shifted to be situational. Like I said before, this removes player choice. You can't decide when and where you want to use a drive form or Keyblade transformations in Kingdom Hearts 3. It just happens for a limited time when you do enough attacks. Same for limits, they just sort of pop up rather than draining your MP when you decide to use them. It means they're entirely useless outside of regular combat, as you can't plan to use specific attacks. You can't factor in Keyblade transformations or limits into your speedruns or boss guides because they're entirely random. A better way of making these work would be to have limits still drain MP like in Kingdom Hearts 2, allowing you to use them on command from your command deck rather than being situational, and attach Keyblade transformations and shot locks both to the drive gauge, which would balance a nice risk reward for using those abilities when the player decides to. This would mean you're able to choose when you use these party limits, Keyblade transformations or shot locks, but it will always be a risk to do so because you'd lose MP or your drive gauge buildup, just like in Kingdom Hearts 2. But then that's up to the player. The only thing which would be situational is the powerful magic attacks, and I'm totally fine with that as I think it works well. As for attraction flow rides, just remove them. They suck. Although they're cool the first time you do them, the 20th time they're just annoying. They slow the pacing, they're overpowered in a lot of cases, and there's no need for them to be in the game. As for flow motion, it's been nerfed in this game, which is great. I nearly never used it simply because all the situation commands were far more powerful. With the changes I recommended, it would probably allow me to use flow motion a lot more, as it would be balanced out. I also never really used links. They are useful in the same way they were useful in previous Kingdom Hearts games, which is in specific situations, but outside of that, not so much. They're fun, they work well, and I think that I'd probably leave these just as they are, since they're up to the player on when to use them, which is great. With all this said, situation commands are fun for casual playing, and for the special moves throughout the game, it feels incredibly enjoyable and satisfying. For anyone who's casually playing through the story, you're going to enjoy it immensely. These again are criticisms and critiques when looking at the game from a more objective viewpoint as someone who likes the challenge and likes to fully master a game that's balanced like Kingdom Hearts 2 was. The Moogle and Gummi shops work the same as in previous games. If it's not broke, don't fix it, right? You can buy supplies along with armor pieces and accessories the same as in Kingdom Hearts 2. These allow for Sora to have certain buffs as well as Donald and Goofy. The shops also allow for synthesis, which is fun and rewarding the same as it's always been, allowing you to synthesize more powerful items with materials you find in the worlds and get from defeating enemies. You also now have particular tasks you can get from Moogles, taking pictures of things in the worlds and get rewards for them. The synthesis has always been fun in Kingdom Hearts, and the more challenging the better. better. And looking at the requirements for the ultimate weapon, it looks like it's going to be quite the grind, and I love that personally. On top of this, you also have the Keyblade Forge, in which you can use materials to upgrade your Keyblades. This allows you to actually keep Keyblades you prefer, rather than them becoming underleveled and redundant later on. I used this to play the whole ending of the game with the Kingdom Key, so it looked cool in cutscenes, and it was great. A very welcome addition for Kingdom Hearts 3. Moving on now to worlds and their exploration. Kingdom Hearts 3 does this leagues better than any previous Kingdom Hearts game has done. The Disney worlds feel incredibly immersive and have different tones depending on which you're in. The term I've used is that in Kingdom Hearts 3, you feel as if Sora, Donald, and Goofy are entering into these different Disney movies, rather than the Disney movies just being present in Kingdom Hearts, and it's done so masterfully. From the original actors returning to their roles, the music being spot on, and the atmosphere feeling so alive and unique for each world, each Disney world is a pleasure to explore, and I love what they did with this game. My only criticisms may have been to have more returning Disney worlds from previous games. Olympus was great, and I wish Sora could have visited more of his old friends such as Jack Skellington, Aladdin, and Simba, but this is clearly something they could do in the future, and the inclusion of Pixar worlds was wonderful, with each one looking just like the movie it was based on. Remarkable work, and each world was a delight to traverse. Each world has a slightly different structure, but most follow similar patterns of exploration, which is split up into 2 to 3 distinctive sections of the world, separated by mini boss fights, resulting in one final boss fight to end the world. Each world is around 2 hours long on average, give or take depending on your playstyle or difficulty, and the pacing and structure can differ based on the story the world is telling. They use all of their assets to the best of their ability and really make each world feel like its own, whereas previous Kingdom Hearts games was more Sora doing similar things moving through different environments. I can't stress enough how much I loved the Disney worlds in this game, and the fact that each world introduced something new. Olympus has big open spaces with lots of wall running, parkour, and certain areas where you can use Goofy's shield to avoid fire. Pirates of the Caribbean has the open world with ships, which is very reminiscent of Wind Waker or Black Flag, and it's a ton of fun to explore. Toy Story has robots you can jump inside and use as guns, and the list goes on. Each world has different elements which are unique to it and makes exploring and experiencing each world very different, not just in scenery and atmosphere but also in terms of gameplay. Not to mention each world gives you a new party member from the Disney movie the world is from, and this allows for unique moves inspired by the movies, and this was a really nice touch. Although unique limits were also in previous Kingdom Hearts games, Kingdom Hearts 3 probably does them best, at least in terms of how they look and what they do. Gummy ships in Kingdom Hearts have always been a bit of a hit or miss. I always liked the sections as I enjoyed that you weren't just skipping from world to world, but instead there was an actual travel mechanic which was very nice. But I can't deny that Kingdom Hearts 3 shits on everything that came before it in this regard. You have a huge open area for space between each of the worlds, which you can fly around in freely with your Gummy ship. Each open area has a few worlds you can navigate to, as well as having battle scenarios you can engage in with enemies or fortresses as well as bosses, and there's also treasure spheres which you can find and complete, giving you special rewards used for synthesis or Keyblade forging and Gummy ship customization. You also have special crystals to destroy, enemies to fight, and rocks to break in order to gain more materials. It's really fun just exploring these spaces, and they turned it into a proper fun gameplay mechanic rather than just a small mini game which is just tacked on. It's a blast. As well as this, I'm not sure if it was because the game did it better or because I wanted to try out everything, but I actually bothered to customize Gummy ships in this game, and it was a ton of fun, making my ship my own and then taking it out for a spin to fight some enemies. The last piece of general gameplay I wanted to go over was the collectibles and mini-games, which are fine, but Kingdom Hearts collectibles have never been super incredible, just a means to unlock the secret movie. You have of course materials for synthesis, but you can also find ingredients around the world which Donald just loves to point out. You use these ingredients to cook in Remy's bistro in Twilight Town. This mini-game is fun, it can be tough at times too, which is classic Kingdom Hearts, and it rewards you with meals you can eat for temporary buffs. I never really bothered to use these because it was more effort than it was worth, but it might be worth utilizing once critical mode is out. The main collectible in the game is the Lucky Emblems, which you use your Gummy phone to take pictures of. They're scattered throughout all of the worlds and were pretty fun to find, as some were contextual, for example made out of plates or clouds in the background, which I thought was a nice touch, almost referencing and taking inspiration from how Disney World hides Mickey Mouse emblems across their parks. There's also a few world-specific mini-games you find as you progress throughout the game. The soundtrack to Kingdom Hearts 3 is one of the very best, not just in Kingdom Hearts but in all of video games. And not just that, but it's scored so incredibly well. It chooses the right moments to hit you in the gut with music that you recognise from old games and introduces new versions of old great tracks as well as creates new memorable ones in big moments. They really do use the best of their collection of Kingdom Hearts music to get you super invested in this story and add new masterpieces to their already diverse collection of music. I thought it was worth mentioning that this game is gorgeous. I played it in 4K on the PS4 Pro and it just looks insane. This game is of course the first mainstream Kingdom Hearts game on a main console since the PlayStation 2, discounting 0.2, and the visuals really show that. Not just is it gorgeous, but the art style changes from world to world, with Olympus having the art style of the movie Hercules with the swirls in the environment, to Pirates having a photorealistic look. Every world has its own feel, and this new graphics engine really does wonders to bring it all to life. The icing on the cake for the experience of Kingdom Hearts 3 really is that it just looks marvellous in every single way, and it's only right that this epic chapter looks the part too. This next section of the video will be talking full spoilers. If you wish to skip this part, please head to the timestamp on screen to avoid any potential spoilers. I'll leave this timestamp on screen for around 10 seconds, so you have a chance to pause the video and navigate to the time shown. In the previous section of the video, I discussed Disney Worlds in a spoiler-free manner. However, there are some elements I considered to be potential spoilers and so left for this section of the video. For example, the outcome of the worlds and their bosses, and particular elements that are maybe better left unsaid until after finishing the game. First of all, the reason you're visiting these Disney Worlds is linked to Sora's quest to unlock the power of waking. Now, I have some things to say about this power later on, but for now let's stick to his quest. As he navigates each of these worlds, he comes across organization members in each world. This is pretty standard for Kingdom Hearts at this point. Organization members show up and spout something cryptic to make the player question the plot. Solid stuff, and it works well and keeps you intrigued, meaning even when you're invested in the plot of the world, you're also thinking about the overarching story and what the organization might have for you in this world, which adds 2 layers of potential tension, and I like this. My only issue, however, is that the organization members don't really do anything. They say things to Sora and comment on what's happening, but they never really do much other than Marluxia turning Mother Gothel into a Heartless in Kingdom of Corona, or young Xehanort capturing Buzz in Toy Box. Sometimes the organization members are just there for the sake of being there, like with Larxene in Frozen or Xigbar in Olympus. They may have some interesting things to say, but they aren't really doing anything of note. It's more a smaller criticism than anything else. Sure, the organization members did near to nothing but talk to Sora in Kingdom Hearts 2, but that was more to intrigue the player and set up what was to come. Going into Kingdom Hearts 3, we already knew who most of the players were and who the organization was and what they're doing, so some of their presence really did come across as pointless. Although the Disney worlds were fun and engaging, their connection to the main story was very, very loose. Whereas in Kingdom Hearts 1, there's a reason you're traveling to these other worlds. You're looking for Riku and KAIRI along with King Mickey, and closing those keyholes, and continuing to do the same in Kingdom Hearts 2, along with discovering who these mysterious guys in cloaks are. In Kingdom Hearts 3, the only reason is really to find this obscure power of waking that isn't greatly explained and isn't even gained from these worlds in the end anyways, but seems to just activate when needed, which makes all the voyaging through these Disney worlds pointless from an overarching narrative perspective, which can seem a bit irritating. As for the bosses in these worlds, they're for the most part very fun and engaging, with the only exceptions really being the boss for Toy Box and Monstropolis, along with Big Hero 6 being thoroughly underwhelming. The rest of the bosses, however, were very fun, with Davy Jones and Mother Gothel's Heartless being among my favourite. They actually seemed to retaliate and kept you on your toes, which I really liked, and it felt very reminiscent of something in Kingdom Hearts 2. I can't wait to replay these bosses when critical mode is out. Back to talking about the narrative. The power of waking is something I have a huge issue with. The power itself isn't really explained at all, and it seems different characters know different things about it. Also, wasn't the point of the Mark of Mastery in Dream Drop Distance to get the power of waking? Doesn't Riku have that power? Or does it only work with hearts that you're linked to? I suppose that makes sense, but then why didn't they explain that? On top of this, like I said before, Sora doesn't even gain this power from exploring the Disney worlds, but instead it just activates when he needs it to, making the entire rest of the game feel redundant when considering the overall story. Just because the Disney worlds were really fun and had great stories, doesn't mean that all the time spent there wasn't entirely pointless. I can somewhat overlook this, but the fact that it's such a huge plot point is pretty irritating when looking at this game critically. A huge criticism that people have is that Kingdom Hearts 3 feels rushed. Now, I think this is more the fact that the game is very lopsided when compared to older Kingdom Hearts titles. Kingdom Hearts 2, for example, has a big moment at the midpoint of the game where you have a ton of things to do in Radiant Garden along with the Battle of the Thousand Heartless. In Kingdom Hearts 3, you don't have that, and the game is pretty much divided into two sections, the first half being Disney Worlds, and the second half being the KEYBLADE Graveyard. Sure, there are cutscenes after each world that fill you in on what's going on, but there's no major moments like in Kingdom Hearts 2. I feel the ending section feels rushed simply because not a lot happens during the section where Sora goes from Disney World to Disney World, and then suddenly Aqua's saved, Ven is saved, and you're in the KEYBLADE Graveyard fighting XEHANORT's 13 vessels, and it feels as if it came out of nowhere and happened so suddenly. I don't think that's due to the ending actually being rushed. I think it gives all plot and characters ample time and really allows you to experience this epic finale. I think the main issue for it feeling this way is just simply because there's no big moments to separate the Disney worlds earlier on. If you'd had a moment in Radiant Garden or Twilight Town after 4 of the Disney worlds, then perhaps things would have felt more balanced out rather than 2 separate games joined together in the middle, which I do think is a bit of an issue when it comes to the pacing and structure of the overarching story of Kingdom Hearts 3. Another complaint I do have that is a lot of this game is cutscene oriented. Everything in Radiant Garden is cutscenes, and the same with Destiny Islands. We also get one small playable area in the Realm of Darkness. Ideally, I think having areas of Radiant Garden and Destiny Islands playable really would have fixed some of the pacing, so rather than seeing other places, we'd experience them too, because the way the game is at this point almost feels very limited in how it's laid out to the player. You can see these places that you'd normally be able to visit in previous games, but for some reason you can't here. You can only see them. It feels like there's not enough downtime in hub areas to focus on Sora's own personal journey in this game. Instead, there's just lots and lots of Disney worlds and then cutscenes, whereas in Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, this was handled very differently. Even Birth by Sleep did this a lot, with having Radiant Garden, Land of Departure, Destiny Islands, KEYBLADE Graveyard, and the Realm of Darkness fully playable. Just some things I feel may have helped the game feel less lopsided. The next section I wanted to talk about was the KEYBLADE Graveyard. I think this entire section, from the moment you enter the KEYBLADE Graveyard to the moment you leave Tuscala, is perfect. It's lengthy, it's deep, the story moments are so cool, and everyone gets a moment to shine. For a start, we get to see the 7 Guardians of Light clash with the darkness firsthand. This battle is what's been built up to over years, and it felt amazing. Seeing Sora lose everyone and struggle to go on was heartbreaking and done with such elegance. I can't count the amount of times I shed tears during this section of the game. The battle against the thousands of heartless nobodies and Umverse was brilliant. It felt huge and really was a successor to the 1000 Heartless battle in Kingdom Hearts 2. This part also took some time to explain other elements of the story. We got some insight on who this mysterious girl that Isa and Lee keep mentioning is, as well as learning how the power of waking has great consequences for Sora. There are so many moments to go over, so I'll keep it brief, but like I said, if you want to know my thoughts on everything, we go over it at length in the Spoilercast Podcast, The Cinema Room, out on Patreon now and coming to YouTube February 17th. This game really shines narrative-wise once you're in the labyrinth. You get to fight all the enemies you fought before, one after the other, and it was done so well. My only issue is that it was a tad too easy. There were a few battles with Larxene and Vanitas to be exact, where it had me on my toes, but the others felt like a bit of a cakewalk. Again, it could be down to critical mode not being out, and I hope that's the case, because I could feel that they were well-made bosses, they just weren't quite hard enough for me to properly experience them on Proud mode. After fighting each of the enemies, you had moments with all of them, revealing secrets and speaking their mind, and it was nice to see these characters, specifically the nobodies, find peace, because we know these people were manipulated by Xemnas and are just normal people at heart, and now they can be recompleted, and so in a way we're saving them. Lux Swords is one moment that really stood out to me as touching. The other moments we got were with the characters themselves. Seeing the Birth by Sleep trio reunite was spectacular, and the same with the 358 guys. Roxas's entrance brought a tear to my eye and sent shivers down my spine. It was a truly great payoff for years of investment in these characters, and each and every one of them had their time to shine. None of them were rushed, and I felt it spent appropriate length giving everyone their spotlight and payoff. Except for KAIRI. KAIRI is an issue all in itself, which I felt I needed to address. KAIRI in Kingdom Hearts 1 and for the most part of Kingdom Hearts 2 was the damsel in distress. We learn in Kingdom Hearts 2 that she can wield a Keyblade, which she does briefly, and we learn why that was in Birth by Sleep. Dream Drop Distance then sets up that she'll be a Guardian of Light, and we see clips of her training, but not really training, several times in Kingdom Hearts 3. We expect that the final battle will finally see KAIRI shine, but she does nothing. nothing at all. And then she gets kidnapped. And then fucking dies. I mean, she's not dead, she was just lost, but like, shit. KAIRI, when did you turn into the worst character in all of Kingdom Hearts? Purely pointless and entirely wasted. I'm aware by saying this I'm going to rile up some Kingdom Hearts fanboys, and it's really something that infuriates me. I can't even try to see it from any other angle. This was very, very, very poor writing on Nomura's part. I suppose I can forgive him since he gets everything else so right, but KAIRI's writing in this game was so bad, and something needs to be done with her moving forward because they screwed this up big time. With regards to the final boss with XEHANORT, I'm not entirely sure what the consensus is for this battle, but I personally loved it. The armored XEHANORT boss was pretty good, but the final boss with regular XEHANORT was easily one of the best in the game, if not one of the best bosses in general. It was challenging, even only on Proud mode, with me genuinely getting frustrated at times, which is what I love about Kingdom Hearts. But it was also well made because I kept trying again and had to master when to block, when to dodge, when to attack. It had its own gimmicks with you being forced into rage mode and having to reclaim light. The boss was very well made, and I'm so happy that the final boss of the game was enjoyable, challenging, and responsive. I wouldn't have had it any other way, and I'm sure that on Critical this boss will be even better, and I cannot wait. Only thing I wish is that the last world wasn't used just for the boss, but it was a full world, similar to how the World That Never Was its own thing in Kingdom Hearts 2, and End of the World was its own thing in Kingdom Hearts 1. Sure, the Keyblade Graveyard was technically the final world, and then we get to go to Scala just for the boss, but it had its own title card, and this is Kingdom Hearts 3. Scala really should have been a full-fledged world in itself, where we battle our way to the top of the tower to finally face down against XEHANORT. Would have been an improvement. Even so, this boss was great to play, and I really enjoyed it. Now the thing with XEHANORT and his final battle is what comes after. After finishing XEHANORT, the antagonist of the entire franchise up to this point, Sora and him have a discussion. XEHANORT explains that he's doing this to restore the world to light and purge the world of darkness. Now I always loved XEHANORT for being pure evil, for being someone who killed countless people, stole vessels, split his heart into 13 pieces, and plunged the world into darkness just out of sheer curiosity as to what would happen should another Keyblade War happen and Kingdom Hearts should open. But it seems they tried to retcon it that XEHANORT was actually just a good bloke all along and was trying to do the right thing in his own twisted way. This is doubly worse when XEHANORT hands Sora the Keyblade and concedes the battle, saying, "Good job," as if he just lost a friendly game of chess or something. Like, no. You don't get to be redeemed. You don't get to have a happy ending. You destroyed worlds. You destroyed people's lives. You trapped people in pure darkness. You don't get redemption. XEHANORT should have been destroyed for being pure darkness. After Erika shows up, which I did like, they both fly off into the sky together laughing happily. XEHANORT gets a redemption, and although I've come to terms with it all, I still can't really stand this plot point. It's something I would easily change if given the chance. It doesn't sour the experience of Kingdom Hearts 3 and its overall story. It doesn't ruin Sora's victory against darkness. It simply ruins the character of XEHANORT, who for me up until this point was evil for the sake of his curiosity, and I loved that, but now it's gone. It doesn't ruin the whole ending sequence for me, I still really love it, it's just something that disappointed me when I played it through. Now the rest of the ending was all fantastic. I loved everything they did. I loved the CGI scenes with all the characters. It was all so amazing and I was bawling my eyes out for the entirety. When it comes to looking at the epilogue, the secret movie and all that jazz, we do properly go into all of that on the KH3 episode of the Cinema Room Spoilercast Podcast, which is already on Patreon and coming to YouTube, iTunes, Spotify and SoundCloud on February 17th. So if you want to know all my thoughts on that, definitely give that a listen as you'll be bound to enjoy it. Now there's a few side content issues and things I'd like to go over ever so quickly before I wrap things up. First of all, the entire Winnie the Pooh world was pointless. It felt tacked on and nothing. Whereas in other Kingdom Hearts games, you'd find lost pages throughout the world that would complete the book and give you a full fleshed out world of the 100-acre wood to experience and do a multitude of minigames in this game it's purely nothing and only included for the sake of it. There are 3 minigames, all of which are the same minigame, and there's nothing more to it than finding Merlin in Twilight Town and going into the book. It was almost worse than just excluding it from the game entirely, and it was incredibly disappointing. Secondly, the Final Fantasy characters were entirely absent from Kingdom Hearts 3. They weren't even mentioned. These characters who were hugely important to the story of Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, with Cloud having a major arc in Olympus from the first game and then in Radiant Garden in the second, we never got to see that finished. Leon, Yuffie and Aerith and the rest of them were also nowhere in Kingdom Hearts 3. After being guides and good friends to Sora across the previous 2 major stories, teaching him a lot and giving him a place to stay in Radiant Garden, they were simply not present at all, which seems very odd and out of character that they not even be mentioned. There's a chance that this is due to them appearing in DLC, which would fix this being one of the biggest issues that I had, but who knows. As it stands, it's very strange that they weren't present after being so vital to the Kingdom Hearts games in the past. Another thing which I sense could be coming later down the line is data organization bosses. They were hugely popular in Kingdom Hearts 2, and imagining Kingdom Hearts 3 getting to fight super hard versions of this Organization 13. It would be incredibly fun, and I feel this is something that must be coming later down the line, otherwise they'd have missed something that would have been absolutely brilliant. There's only one secret boss in Kingdom Hearts 3, being Dark Inferno. There are 14 orbs across the world after you finish the game, which contain different battle arenas with enemies. Dark Inferno is one of those battle arenas, the rest containing just heartless enemies. The boss itself I'm actually yet to complete, so I can't fully comment on it. However, it's been a great challenge so far, and I'm certainly too underleveled to fight him currently. I can tell this boss seems it's going to be a challenge I've actually been looking for from Kingdom Hearts 3, but I suppose I'll have to talk about that once I've actually managed to finish it. I tried my best to go over everything of note. With a game of this size and depth, it's impossible to cover every single little part, but I think I did the game justice and analysed it to the best of my ability. I really love Kingdom Hearts 3. I love it more and more with each passing day, and the more I think about it, the more I love it. This game may not be perfect, but it's certainly very special to me. In terms of story, it did everything that I hoped it would, and the same goes for atmosphere, tone, and soundtrack. Every character felt like themselves and was performed and written perfectly all these years later. It was so special to tie up the loose ends and end this narrative arc that has spanned 18 years. It's just a shame that some gameplay elements don't live up to its predecessors, and there are some narrative pacing issues and plot points that rub me the wrong way. But with that being said, the good definitely outshines the bad, and Kingdom Hearts 3 stands up as one of the best games I've played in recent years, and I really am thankful that we got to play such a brilliant game. I'm so excited for whatever comes next, and I'm more into Kingdom Hearts now than I've ever been, and I'm so glad to see everyone in the community seems to be as well. This franchise remains to this day my favourite of all time, and I will never lose the love I have in my heart for Kingdom Hearts. Thanks so much for watching. Like I said, just $1 over on patreon.com/asalways to get access right now to the Kingdom Hearts 3 episode of the Cinema Room podcast, where we fully go in depth for nearly 3 hours on everything Kingdom Hearts 3, and it was a blast to do. If not, then it's coming to YouTube, SoundCloud, iTunes, and Spotify like I keep saying, February 17th. So subscribe if you haven't already to stay tuned for that. Don't forget to like if you enjoyed, let me know your thoughts in the comments, and share this video as I worked super hard on it, as I always try to with my content. I hope to see you guys in my next video, but until then, cheers lads, catch you in the next one.